How are you? This is great. Awesome. Yeah. All right. Hello. I'm Jeanne Marie Olson. I'm from Northwestern University. I'm an educator, a designer, and a researcher. And I'm curious. I want to know why things work, why things don't work, what the problems of the world are, what you think the problems of the world are, and how we're going to solve those problems. And I feel very, very lucky to work with this really radically cool group in the United States called Design for America, some of whom are here today, if you hadn't heard their woo going on when I came up on stage. This group is so much fun to work with, and they are also curious. They're intensely curious. They want to find out, we could say radically nosy, perhaps. They want to find out what in the world is going on that they can help facilitate designing change for social impact. So, how do we do this? We use our curiosity, looking, finding, probing, trying to come up with those creative insights that feed creative ideas and then drive creative action. And since this is Chicago Ideas Week, I know we're supposed to be talking about ideas and lots of big ideas and the great ideas that Chicago has, because we have a lot of them. But I would really be remiss if I also didn't back up for a second and talk a little bit about insight and what the germs of those great ideas are. And I almost want to make up a word at this point. And the word I want to make up is outside. So let's make up that word today, and we'll put it in the Wiktionary, Completia, whatever it is online, where they store the new words. And why do I say outside? I say because insight, the best insight, is about going out into the world. It's about getting out of yourself, out of your own stereotypes and assumptions, about going out and finding out from your community what they're experiencing, what their ideas are, and how you can work together to create those neat solutions from really fun ideas. This in the design community is called designing with and not for. Some of you have probably already heard this philosophy, but for some creative professionals, this is an extreme shift in their point of view, because they're used to creativity that's a lot about self-expression. And designing with and not for means that we're not going to go into your community and say, here's my great idea, go do that. Here, change. We're going to work alongside of people and say, what's your great idea? What do you think? What do you care about? What are your needs? That's designing with and not for. And so this act of creative community, this act of coming together and collaborating, as was mentioned by Anna, as was mentioned by JJ, this is such an integral part of being creative. I'd like you to introduce you to the students of our Chicago community. They have purple t-shirts on. A lot of them are sitting over here. You can see Design for America. And students are at the core of the Design for Community Network. They're the learners, they're the doers, they're the facilitators. I also want to recognize some of the mentors from our community that are here today, the faculty, the coaches, the people who give guidance, who lend some experience to the process. I also want to recognize our nonprofit clients. These are very brave organizations that entrust us with their hopes, their dreams, and their passions, and what they hope to make as far as a difference in the world, and community members. This is where we get our inspiration. This is where we get our ideas. These are the people that give us feedback and say, yes, that's great, or no, that won't work, or hey, have you thought about trying this? And I could go through this whole framework about Chicago, Illinois, and I could go through this whole framework about DFA and how overall we interact with the community here and other communities. But instead, let's get personal. Let's look local. So it's Chicago, Illinois. We're about, I don't have a watch on me, about 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning. What's happening in the world, right? In our world. Every Chicago zip code is at a high risk for lead exposure. Our plumbing and infrastructure in Chicago is leaching lead into our tap water. 1 in 5 of our residents live in urban food deserts. That's about 600,000 Chicagoans who have trouble getting fresh produce, vegetables, and fruit to feed their families every day. CPS kindergartens are crowded. There there are like 30 to 34 students in every CPS kindergarten with vastly different learning needs. We have kindergartners who don't know their alphabet yet, and kindergartners who want to read already. And one teacher is generally trying to get all of these learning needs interacting in one small space. Challenging problems are everywhere. We can look at these, and this is such a downer, and everybody's like, wow, shut up, why did you come here on this great morning to give us some of these heavy problems? And what I want to communicate to you is that at Design for America, we're a little, what's the word for it? Strange. We're kind of like problem junkies, so to speak. We don't see just problems. We see opportunities. And so when we find these opportunities to solve in the community, we rush toward them, we embrace them, we want to know what they are. This was the philosophy of my colleague, Liz Gerber, Dr. Liz Gerber, when she had the inspiration for the Design for America Network. She couldn't be here today, she really wanted to be here today, she's on the West Coast, so I thought I'd give you a little example of her scholarly demeanor. We're very serious at Northwestern. And when she got to the McCormick School of Engineering and Siegel Design Institute in 2008, she saw that higher education also had a bit of a design problem. That universities were these huge repositories of passion and resources and excitement, and that communities had trouble connecting with those universities, that students didn't always know where resources were, that students were idealistic and passionate and energetic, and then we graduate and then they get real jobs. And maybe, in 3 years I'll save the world. That turns into 5 years, 15 years later. So today's workers, designers, were the students of yesterday with all these passionate ideals. And then you've got these not-for-profits and these community members who have all these great ideas and context, but they themselves don't have the resources to engage in solutions or get their ideas heard. So how do you do this? How do you take this really neat intersection of this energy and resources and passion and need and talent? What do you do with that, right? So let's talk about one example project that we've gone through in Design for Americas. It was the DFA Summer Fellows Project in 2009, one of them out of 3. And we encourage the students to look very locally, not to go to another continent, not to go across the country, but in their own backyard. So they chose a hospital 6 blocks from the university campus. And the big problem that they were trying to take on was, how do we get rid of hospital-acquired infections? Now, again, sorry about the downer, but if you're not familiar with hospital-acquired infections, 2 million people in the United States this year will get a hospital-acquired infection during their hospitalization. Almost 100,000 of those people will die from that infection. It's a huge problem. It's very serious. It costs $4 to $6 billion just to fight that problem per year in the United States, not including any other healthcare costs. So, this is big. And we are about trying to whittle those problems down to something that is manageable, something that we can actually take on, so that all these little wins and successes can go bigger, scale larger, build expertise, experience, confidence. And so we went back to the hospital and we said, okay, that's huge. What do we do? What can we do in this backyard? And they said, hands. Hands. The CDC, the Center for Disease Control, has identified hand hygiene as being the biggest contributor to hospital-acquired infections. Even in the best hospitals in the United States, only 50% of hand hygiene opportunities are taken advantage of. Only half the time are the doctors and nurses and patient care technicians in a hospital room taking advantage of every hand hygiene opportunity. That's only half. There's some room for improvement there. So, all right, we're going to take a look at hands. This is also very preventable. So the problem became, how do we get all medical staff to sanitize their hands at every opportunity? So these 4 courageous students from Northwestern University from very different majors spent day and night in the intensive care unit, observing, getting really close, looking at data that the rest of us would be like, that is so boring. I don't care about hospital curtains. I don't care about different interactions, but that is where we find our creative insight. We look, we ask, we probe, we search, search, search. And one of the things the students were told was that there are 5 moments in hand hygiene that we all would assume that if we're the patient in this bed, and imagine yourselves in this bed, it seems that totally normal. Someone's going to come up to us and say, come into the room and say, wash your hands before, wash your hands after. No, there are more moments in hand hygiene where you wash your hands. That you can give germs back to yourself. That you can give germs back to yourself from touching an unsterile part of your body to a sterile part of your body. They also noticed that there's a lot of activity going on around patient beds. They also noticed that the opportunities for hand hygiene in hospital rooms, because of safety regulations and how they're set up, are far away from those hospital beds. Interesting. Now they're starting to add things together. Chance encounters in a hallway with a nurse who, when going to wipe or shake their hand after holding a glass of cold water, she wipes it on her scrubs. So 2 of the students from the team were really interested in this problem. They wanted to go and think about the connections and think about their insights. And they're sitting on a beach on Lake Michigan, and they stand up. One of them wipes his hands on his shorts to get the sand off. And inspiration. The connection from the observations, the connection from the insights. What is the most simple, basic movement that all of us do as kids when we don't have a sink or a towel around and our hands are sticky and gross and we wipe them on our clothing? Interesting. So what to do with that? We ideate. They go back to the team. They create fervently. No idea is bad. Don't judge now, don't criticize now, get them all out on the table, the outrageously inventive ideas, especially the outrageously inventive ideas. And then we prototype. What does fun look like for us? The same way it looks like for any sculptor, any artist, any 5-year-old dreamer. We build things. We get crazy. We build things. They don't even have to look perfect, obviously. We're not looking for something that's exact. We want to get them out into space and have people play with these, because it's not about us. It's about them. It's about engaging them in their own solutions and having them tell us yes or no, or can you make it green? So, where do we end up with the swipe sense? A device that with one hand you can wipe, sanitize your hands wherever you are in the room or in the hospital, thus eradicating the spread of hospital-acquired infections and potentially saving lives. This is in development right now. It's being clinically tested, or going through clinical trials. So this is one project out of many in education, environment, and health, where we are encouraging each other to act fearlessly, push the boundaries, find those problems that nobody else wants to tackle, that they seem to have given up hope. And because one of the things that we find when we get to the university is that a lot of students, they have all this passion, but they're like, what can we do? We haven't even graduated yet. And after the Design for America experience, they're not asking, what can we do? They're asking, is there anything we can't do? And for a professor to hear that coming back from you in the classroom, that is awesome. That is amazing. So here we are, Saturday, October 15th, right? And we have all of these problems. Here's some local ones to me. But now, Design for America is going out from Chicago into other communities, to other universities. We now have 8 studios at different universities. We have a plan of being in 50 states in 5 years. It's a big, big plan. With thousands of engaged, excited students, not just engineering students, not just science majors, artists, singers, sculptors, actors, all working together with community members, engaging them, getting this pipeline, not of ideas, not a pipeline of teams, but a pipeline of people, a pipeline of people who believe in their ability to use these frameworks and design to change their world. And we want to invite you to be part of that. So, after the presentations, 2 speakers from now, not now, we're going to ask you to think about problems in your own communities, problems that are personal to you, that you can tell us a story about. And we want you to look locally tell us these stories. Click. We want you to look for the students for Design for America. They're wearing the purple shirts. I'm going to have them stand up right now. Here they are. Stand up, Design for America. So we want you to look for these students. They're going to take notes. They're going to write down the problems that you see as challenging. Now, we're not going to promise that we're going to be able to get all of you at the lab, but if any of these students take on one of the design challenges or design problems that you're putting out there, we are going to get you in the lab. We are going to ask you your opinion. We are going to invite you to come in and share with us and design with us and change the world for the better, because we want all of us, in this engaged, creative community, to look for solutions to these creative problems. We're also going to put it on our blog, because we want you guys to all be saying, a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, is there anything we can't do? Because in this community, if we put our minds to it and we have the right framework and we pool our creativity, we can change the world and do anything.